Okay. What's up, everybody? It is Andrew Hitz from the Entrepreneurial Musician, and I am doing a live TEM coaching chat here. I think I'm going to start to do there's some changes afoot here at TEM, and I'm going to start doing some of these. So, anyway, today's was inspired by an incredible quote from Elizabeth Gilbert. I just reread her amazing book, Big Magic. If you have not read that book, I would highly encourage that you check it out. It's wonderful. It's packed. The first half is really good. The second half is incredible. But there's a quote in there that really jumped out at me. It did the first time I read it, and it did when I just reread this book, which is perfectionism is just a high-end haute couture version of fear. I think perfectionism is just fear in fancy shoes and a mink coat, pretending to be elegant when actually it's just terrified. That is really powerful. And as with anything that's that good, I feel like she was speaking directly to me about me because my ego needs a story. When I am afraid of something, I rarely, especially when it's work related. I mean, if I fear for my safety, I realize that I'm fearing for my physical safety. But if it's that I'm dragging my heels on finishing a book or on writing a podcast episode or whatever, and I'm not sharing it, it's because I'm worried that it's not good enough or it's not going to be received well or something like. But my ego will never let me just be afraid, or to rather admit to myself that I'm afraid. So it always crafts a story. And on top of that, it crafts a really realistic story. It's always believable to me. It's fascinating how good my ego is at coming up with a story that's not too far-fetched, but it's also not too simple that I see through it. It ends up being just like the perfect mixture of, like, it's just a get out of jail free card for me. And there's a lot going on in my head. So I need a process for figuring out why I'm dragging my heels on something. Of course, the first step in that is always self awareness. I have to recognize that I am afraid of something, and I need to recognize that I'm dragging my heels. And then I can kind of start to unpack that. For me, even just having the awareness that I am afraid, I don't always have to put my finger exactly on why, and because it's frequently is a combination of a few different things. But if I can start a process where I am regularly evaluating, am I dragging my heels on something, and if I am, what is this about? It will frequently help me to get through it. And then I also always have the option to just bail on something, which I think is important to remember as well. It's not like I am pot committed that every single thing that I start that I have to finish. Although, as Seth Godin said in the Dip, for anybody who is wondering how long it would take me to mention Seth Godin, it was over 3 minutes. But it's all quitting is underrated, as he says, but it's all about when you quit. But that's the thing, is like, if I'm afraid for legitimate reasons, then I can move on. What would the kind of rub for me comes when I am afraid, but I don't recognize that I'm afraid, and so I'm still telling myself that this thing is important, but then that my actions are not that this thing is important. And when there's that conflict, that's when I'm in some sort of turmoil, and that's not sustainable. And then lastly here is that I also need to remind myself, intentionally remind myself, that fear means that there's tension, right? When I don't know whether something is going to work out or not work out, which means that fear is actually good. I hate it. I'm not saying that I love fear. I'm not saying that when I'm feeling insecure, or that when I'm feeling any of those things, that I am sitting there thinking like, oh, good, I'm afraid and this is growth. Like, no, I can't stand being afraid, and my ego can't stand being like on the spot. But I have to remind myself that fear means tension, and all growth comes from tension. Whether it is me in public with that thing. Nobody pays me for either of the other instruments. That one over there is for fun, and the one behind me is just a teaching tool. But all growth comes from tension. And so I have to be in performance situations where I'm not sure if it's going to work out or not work out. I need to be putting offering products or services to the world where I'm not sure if it's going to work out or not work out. When I'm revamping my private lesson policy, and in terms of like the commitment I'm asking for students, I love teaching, but I don't love managing. And so I'm kind of, what I'm doing is like a little bit aggressive, I think I'm articulating it well. But I'm about to flip the switch, and I'm a little bit worried that some of my existing students, I don't have a large studio intentionally, but that they might not all like it. Like, that's good though. Like, I'm moving things forward, and so I have to remind myself that fear means tension, and tension is where all growth comes from. So fear is not a bad thing. But when perfectionism, which is like, okay, I gotta wait just a little bit longer until I revamp my private lesson studio and how I approach it and how I charge. I have to just do a little bit more research. I have to talk to one more studio teacher who's done this to get just a little bit of a better. I got to tweak the website a little bit more before I announce that it's live. All of these things. That's just fear in fancy shoes and a mink coat, which I love that visualization, by the way, because my fears don't have fancy shoes because I don't own fancy shoes or a mink coat. But I love it, right? It's like, no, no, I'm not afraid. I'm intentionally afraid. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just telling myself a lie. And yeah, pretending to be elegant when actually I'm just terrified. So that was my thoughts on that awesome quote. Read Big Magic if you have not read it. It's wonderful. Elizabeth Gilbert is a treasure. And thank you for checking out this TEM coaching chat. And I will see you with another one of these soon. Peace.